Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humans in Accounting, where firm owners share their stories behind the spreadsheets. I'm Alex Roman, and this podcast is brought by South Offices, connecting accounting talent across borders. Today's guest is Jeanne Hardy. Jeanne is the CEO of Creative Business and also of Levvy. And in this episode, we're going to talk with her and know a little bit more about her story, how she started, the challenges. Yeah, I'm really interested in talking with you, Jeanne. Jeanne, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, great. So it's great. We started talking a few weeks ago through an introduction, and now we just realized that we're gonna see each other in 1 week next week. One week. It's great to see you in person. And I was looking at your website, and there are many things that I want to ask you, but it would be great if you can share with us a little bit about your background and how you decided just to start your creative business. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. Well, I started creative business in 2005. So we're actually celebrating our 20-year anniversary. I know that seems impossible because I'm so young, but I was an early adopter to the bookkeeping profession. And I was working in New York City, backgrounds in art, and I was working with a number of artists, helping them manage their studios. And that was where I was kind of recruited into helping them manage their whole financial lives. And I got really excited about it. There's a lot to do in that creative industry, and it's inspired me to start a business that really just focused on creative entrepreneurs. Over the years, we've grown, we've added a lot of services, mainly because our clients were asking for them. Really, like, their needs were sort of driving our growth in these different areas like human resources, advisory, fractional, CFO and COO work. At the same time, we moved into different industries, all creative, like, fast growth companies like technology, e-commerce, makers, as well as, design, architecture, creative agencies. So we have a pretty broad base of creative industry companies that we work with, but it's a lot of fun. The great thing is that, this work is hard. Anyone who does it will tell you it's hard work. But when you get to work with incredibly talented people, it's super exciting and fulfilling. So we love our clients and love the work we do.
That's great, but I need to ask you a follow-up question. You have started, you said, in art. How was that? Or tell me a little bit about that. I'm curious. How was that a change, and what were you specifically doing in the art field? I want to know.
So I was a painter. I still do some painting. And I went to art school in Chicago at the Art Institute of Chicago. And then I did graduate work in New York City. That's how I came to New York City. And yeah, I had a little art career, had some shows, and I really loved it. And working with artists was just kind of a natural extension of what I love to do. Yeah. And, I've been asked this question a lot over the years. And when I think about it, I think the process is so similar to creating art. When you think about an entrepreneur, they build something from nothing. And it's very similar to walking into an empty studio or looking at a blank canvas. You have an idea, but you're listening to the idea as much as you're listening to yourself. And so the business, when you build a business to a certain point, it starts to talk to you. That's really similar to the artistic process. When you start a painting, when you start making art and you get to a certain point in the process, it starts to tell you what it needs you to do next. And so, I have a lot of admiration for entrepreneurs that, especially creatives who don't always feel so, they're kind of reluctant CEOs, right? They're like, what? I never wanted to run a business. I just wanted to, make my gorgeous furniture. and sell it to people. And now I own this complicated business. So it's, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun helping them through it.
Absolutely. And just one last one. At some point, you were like painting and then selling the things that you painted directly in a show online. Is that something that you're telling me that you still do? I'm sorry, I'm going in that direction, but I really want to know.
Okay. I know it's a little unusual, and it's really funny, Alex, is when I kind of moved out of the directly working with artists. I mean, we still work with like 50 artists, but when I started working with people in other industries, I stopped telling them that my background, that I was an artist. It worked when I was working with artists because they're like, oh, thank goodness, you know what this is like, and I trust you. But when I was talking to an architect, people, I didn't think people would appreciate having an artist doing their financials. It was like artists are bad at math. And so I kind of downplayed it for a while. And it's only been like the last several years that I'm like, I've kind of credentialed myself just by staying in it for as long as I have. But yeah, it's funny. Like, creatives tend to be seen as bad at numbers. And I think a lot of creatives have internalized that and think they're bad at numbers. But what I've actually learned from working with them over the years is once they learn it, if you're able to explain it and teach them what they need to focus on, what are the drivers of their business, where they should pay the most attention as their business grows and changes, they get it and they never forget it. And so it's, it really is about who's doing the translating between the business world and the creative world. It's, if you can build that bridge, there's no better partners in this role than a creative.
Yeah. I also agree with that. And I don't know, well, maybe it's true that people have this idea that artists that are bad at maths. It's something that I never thought about it. But for me, I don't know, if I talk with someone, I don't know, to do my bookkeeping and they told me, hey, I have this background in art, I would be like, hey, that's incredible. and I would ask them the exact same question. And I feel
it's different now, though. I think 10 years ago, it was still, accountants, and there was a few accountants that only worked with artists, right? And artists are really, they can be super successful, but it is complicated because it ebbs and flows so much, right?
Right.
Very similar to professional athletes and entertainers, right? It's like it ebbs and flows. So you're really focused on helping them build wealth, helping them build a strong financial foundation so they can withstand those ebbs and flows, and help them understand how to predict when those years might happen.
Right.
But there weren't that many. I mean, even banks had a hard time when I would be talking with them about artists. Insurance companies had a hard time because they would look at the financials and they would see that the income, going up and down year over year, or like strong first quarter, nothing in the last quarter. And they couldn't make heads or tails, and they were nervous about lending them money, what kind of insurance policy they really needed. And it really took some effort back then to get these business services to take the creative businesses seriously. I'd be like, look, they did 2 million this year. Next year, they're going to do 4 million. The year after that, they're going to do 7 million. You need to take them seriously. This is a very successful business. But today, I feel like because there are so many, and also with all the technology companies and all the makers, that creative businesses are, better understood. And it could be the generation of service providers now in professional services grew up with this idea of, people are, intrinsically creative, and there's a lot of creative ideas out there, and you can build a business from nothing these days, right? So like a super successful, like wildly successful business just from a brilliant idea. But back then it took a little bit more convincing.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Two more questions on this. And
Yeah.
I'll continue because I have too many other questions that I want to know. I think it's great the name though of the company, creative business. It makes absolutely sense. When was the last time this year you painted something, or was it yesterday, just before this podcast?
No, but I am. We just bought a new house upstate in Hudson Valley, and I'm moving my previous studio from our old house into a new studio. So I'm looking forward to getting the studio, in the next few months.
Okay, perfect. Then let me know when you started painting again, just for fun or as a hobby.
Okay.
All right, and one other personal question. You probably don't know, but this is something that I decided a few episodes ago. In my case, I'm a foodie guy. I enjoy a lot eating good food, and something I decided just to ask each one of our guests. My plan is after the episode number 100, just to have a ranking of the food that humans in accounting like. So sorry to tell you or to ask you this direct, but what's your favorite dish or food, you would say?
Mm.
Something that you really like as far as food.
Something
It's a
that I
hard one.
really, I mean, I love food.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'll give you two things, okay, and you can decide which one you
Okay.
like. The first one is I grew up in Chicago, and I love Chicago hot dogs.
Oh, all right.
Chicago hot dogs are the best hot dogs in the world. And when I moved to New York, I was so disappointed in the hot dog situation here.
Okay. So hot dogs, but from Chicago.
Right from Chicago. Yeah, hot dogs.
Okay.
My favorite food is Mediterranean food. I love everything about Mediterranean food. I love the bread. I love the on the fire roasting. I love, all the vegetarian dishes. So
Perfect.
that's
Perfect.
my
Mediterranean food, and I'll put there as well Chicago hot dog. I thought that you were gonna go for Chicago pizza, but yeah, I've never tried the hot dog in Chicago. That's something that I'm gonna
I
do
think
with
New
it.
York has better pizza. I could say that.
Okay, but
My
they're two
Chicago
different.
peeps, sorry. New York has better pizza. Chicago has better.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Great. Now, yes. Tell me. Let's go back to creative business. Tell me a little bit about, since you had a lot of experience since you built this company a few years ago. Tell me, what are the one or two challenges that you can think that were big challenges that you faced, and how you overcome them on creative businesses. So you can also talk about Levvy, which is something that we can talk in a bit. But
Yeah.
challenges, I want to know challenges that you faced.
Well, it's interesting because in business there's always challenges, and learning to be resilient in the journey of being a business person is probably one of the most important things to learn. Understand, like, always take a really long view of your business. Always look at it as if it's going to be around for 20 years. And I think even if you think you're going to sell your business in 3 years or 5 years, think about it as a very long journey. And that helps see how these ebbs and flows of the business kind of level out over time. Early on, it was a challenge I had a young family. It was really a challenge to me to balance the taking care of my kids and having a business, and a business where I was very active in the client conversations, in training my team and working closely with my team. So learning how to balance that was one of the first lessons, and it was really on my mind the whole time. How can this become sustainable? And what it led me to actually hire an extra person. So some people would say you're like overhired in the early days, and I said, yeah, I did. I actually needed to have more people on my team so that I could get more flexibility. And that was kind of an accidental lesson that I taught myself, that people talk about a lot, like learning how to delegate.
Right.
For me, it was necessity because I had two little kids and I needed to be able to run over to their school if somebody called, or be able to go on a field trip. So that was a lesson, learning how to delegate and actually feeling that that elevation of visibility on your company. When you actually delegate the right amount, it doesn't have to be 100%. In the beginning, it's hard to do that. But when you delegate the right amount, you will feel yourself elevated above, the kind of detailed day to day. You'll be able to see what's ahead, what's coming, and you'll also be able to see where things might be going off the rails. So again, that's a moment where your business starts to talk to you, and, really convincing yourself to always be delegating, always be pushing things to the team, always be looking for a way to protect your visibility of the whole company is super valuable. The next big lesson that I learned came after the crash in 2008. So I was of the impression at that point, because I was getting these very large clients and I was being the CFO for those clients, and I had a terrific team, working as the bookkeepers and working with these clients on a day-to-day basis. In 2008, when the market crashed, it was like at the end of 2008, I lost two of the biggest clients that I had. The year leading up to that, literally like the 12 months leading up to that, I was consolidating all of my efforts around like the top 5 largest clients that I had on my roster. In 2009, I spent the year winding those same clients down, and they were all in like luxury goods and, jewelry, textiles, things like that. And it was so eye-opening to me that I needed to diversify. I was like, this was so wrong that I did this. And the only way to protect your business again long term is to have a huge diverse pool of clients, big, small, different industries. And so I love the idea of niching down into an industry as a service provider. That institutional knowledge does actually translate into better clients, higher fees, more success. However, I think the niche, it can't be so narrow that you never know what industry is going to get hurt the most, right? So knowing what industry, even industry adjacent. So for me, having artists would hire architects to work on their homes. Architects work with builders. They work with woodworkers, they work with metal workers. So I was able to grow my niche, expand on it by going to the industries that were actually working for my clients, right? So there's a familiarity there, but I was able to expand. So I wasn't concentrating into one industry that might actually go through a difficult time. So that was really, to me, that was totally game changing. And that took me out of the office, joining networking groups, really getting to know other people in the industry, really starting to educate myself on other business practices. It was a really transformational moment in my business life.
That's great. Yeah, talking about networking and going outside. I want to ask you specifically about Levvy. When did you start Levvy? And again, kind of like the same question. What inspired you to start Levvy? Was there any specific reason?
So that is actually another lesson. That's actually like another evolution of the business. So again, when your business starts talking to you, when you get it to start talking to you, and you're good at listening to it, you start to see patterns evolving. And even if you've been around for 20 years, there are clues that you need to reassess some internal processes, or actually your assumptions about certain things. So we grew pretty quickly and grew as a technology first company. So we were remote first. So when I started Creative Business, it was a remote first service. We weren't going to people's offices anymore. We were actually doing everything in-house and doing it. We were cloud-based, used, online banking, which was new back then.
Right.
And fast forward, when it was around 2017, 2018, we were working with Shopify, we were working with Snyder, we were working, with these tech companies, helping them be better at integrating with the general ledger of QuickBooks. And we prided ourselves on working with these tech-dependent companies, creative agencies, and they had a ton of tech, and we were learning it really quickly. But fast forward, every industry started adopting technology, including all of the vendors, right? So like payroll, insurance, all of a sudden, everybody had a portal that you had to log into. Everybody, the rise of the 2FA problem.
Right.
And so that really changed the business a lot. That started to cause a lot of problems. So not only did it cause problems in slowing down the work product, because again, this was like pre-automation. We were literally pulling data from one system and importing it into another and like praying that it would work. So there was a moment when I realized that this was becoming an existential threat to the business. So just like being concentrated around a couple of large clients, this kind of technology ocean that we were swimming in started to slow down not only our service delivery if there was problems, but it made it really hard for people to get trained. It made it really hard on the team to transfer work to somebody else if they were going on vacation. It was just too much to learn. It was too complex, kind of ridiculously complex, and really unpredictable. And the predictability piece, not having predictable processes and knowing that they were going to work every time you did them was really stressful on the team. It caused a lot of like overwhelm and burnout. And so I started looking for, okay, how can we smooth things out, bring everything under, all together, make it easy to learn this stuff and make it easy to work with these different tools. And that, we tried a number of different practice management tools. I won't name them because they're still around. And we just didn't get the visibility that we needed. We really needed to see all the work that we were doing, who's doing what, but at the same time, within that work, having the tools that we need, having the client knowledge like readily available, and being able to train people and get new people time to value in 60 days, not 120 days. So we built Levvy, and I'm lucky my team, because they're such tech amazing people, they were the guinea pigs. We basically built it together. We iterated around what they wanted. In 2023, I put my entire firm on Levvy. So 25 people, 150 clients, and we worked for a whole year. And the Levvy development team was just iterating around what my team wanted, to the point like they're like, I want this button should actually be over here, or these are 3 things missing in this drop down list. For a tech company, that's like the dream, to have a really active client like that. So it was a game changer for us, and I thought, let's give it to the market, because the industry like needs better tools to deal with all of these tech changes. So we went to market in 2023 at the end, and we've been onboarding firms all throughout 2024. It's been a lot of fun. I've been meeting a lot of really awesome people in the industry, and it's great.
Well, it's so cool. I love so much when I ask or when I see. When I ask why did you start this company, and the answer is, well, I had this issue. I looked if there was someone who could solve it, and no one was actually doing the job. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna do it myself, and that's exactly what you did. So, and that's great. I want to ask you a follow-up question on this. Who's like the ideal client of Levvy? Because I feel like basically any industry is running through these issues, not necessarily an accounting firm.
It's true. Any professional services firm. So we have accounting firms, we have tax and CAS firms, and we have a lot of CAS. So CAS firms get a huge benefit from Levvy because of all of the different technology that they're using across their clients. And when you're in CAS, you're actually merging your client's tech stack and your tech stack, because you have to access their technology in order to do your work. On the tax side, less so. The tax software basically takes care of pretty much the whole soup to nuts tax process. But when you're a tax firm and you're adding outsourced accounting and advisory services, that tech stack is not going to work for managing that. Right. And if you're an accounting firm that has an offshore team or adding remote teams, Levvy is a perfect solution, because what it does is it fully integrates the teams together around the work, sharing the same information and letting people communicate in real time. It's also I basically was like, here's my 16 tab spreadsheets that I use to manage my company.
Right.
Let's put this in Levvy. Let's build this function in Levvy. So the capacity and utilization planning, the client budgets, all that great stuff is in it.
I was asking this specifically for that because, as you know, in South offices, we work with many accounting firms, and they might have someone already in another country, and now they hire someone from Argentina, and they have many of the issues that you mentioned. It's that I wanna know more about Levvy. Maybe we can use it internally. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about positioning. How do you? I mean, I know this is a huge market, and going back to creative and business, or you can also talk about Levvy. It's a huge market, but the truth is that there are also many firms that are doing the same. How do you differentiate from other companies, or what are you guys doing
for a creative business? You mean?
Yeah.
You're right. There are a lot of firms that are focused on creative industries now, which I think is fantastic. I think that's great, and creatives are going to solve the world's biggest problems, so we need to support them. I think that for us, because we have been in New York City for 20 plus years, we have a really nice community around creative business. What I like to do is I like to get involved in some of the industries that we're working with. So whether that's going to a trade show, whether that's participating on some panels that are focused on the finance of those industries, any way that I feel like I can be useful to those industries is how we get our name out there. But in terms of marketing ourselves, we have a great newsletter. Our newsletter, which is Creative Business Inc.'s newsletter, there's also a version of it on LinkedIn, but the full version is an email newsletter, and that is super popular. That's like a wildly popular newsletter that's been around for a long time. I would say that's probably one of the biggest tools. I get people emailing me saying, "This is such a great newsletter. My friend sent it," every month when we send it out. So that's probably our main tool for people discovering us, I think.
Perfect. That's great to know. I have a few more questions before wrapping up. This is one that I like to ask. As far as I don't know, advice. Let's say advice to someone who's watching in the future and this podcast, and they are, I don't know, like you 20 years ago when you thought, okay, this is a good idea or a good timing just to live this and open my or what happened with the Levvy, where you identified that there was something that it was not solved in the market, and you said, all right, I'm going to do it myself. What would be a good advice to give them, or what would be a good advice that you could give actually yourself back then, and now with the experience that you have? What are one or two things that you can think of?
Well, we didn't have the type of industry that we have now.
Right.
Back in the day, it was pretty old school accounting, if I could say that.
Yeah.
And what I love about the industry right now is the accessibility to your peers. You can meet, I've made some fantastic relationships with people I met online. The events, the trade shows that are happening and the events that are happening could be really transformational for a new firm owner, not just the way you can meet people really easily, but the subject matter that gets explored in these trade shows is, I think, really special. It's about leadership, culture, understanding, your employees and how they might see how they might see the company or see the firm and finding a way through that, talking about pricing and positioning. These are things that were not available to me, when and actually, really for the first 10 years, I had to seek out peer-to-peer groups in order to just meet other business owners, right? Let alone accounting. Now, for the first time, I went to Bridging the Gap last year, and it was such an amazing experience. And I went as Levvy. We had a booth there, but meeting the people that I met and going to a number of the sessions, it was so inspiring. And I'm not just saying that, it was really wow. And it takes a lot for a veteran like me to be overwhelmed like that. And this year I'm excited because we're doing a number of shows with Levvy. And so it'll get me out to more of these events. And I'm really excited about that. So if there's any advice that I would give anybody who's even less than 5 or less years into their firm, go to these events, go to these, get involved and get on LinkedIn and start some conversations, because the community is super generous in sharing really useful and actionable information. We were talking before, I'm trying to get my team to really embrace AI and use it every day. And I'm trying a bunch of different things, but I'm so inspired by Jason's stats, who makes it look easy. It's easier said than done. But I feel really informed following him. I feel really informed about the landscape and the choices that a firm owner has in implementing these tools. And Chad Davis has been doing these weekly LinkedIns about, here's the 5 things or 10 things I did with AI this week. And from those posts, I've actually been able to pull some little lessons and little projects that I can give my team to get them warmed up and less intimidated by using the AI tools that I really want them to start using. I mean, it's incredible what you can learn from these amazing people, and then go to an event and you'll meet them in person.
You said so many true things. First, I've heard I've talked with many people. I know Randy and everyone, when they refer to Bridging the Gap, I haven't heard anyone who is not saying that it's the best event ever. So I haven't been there, but that's definitely on my. Unfortunately, I cannot go this year. As you know, I'm in Argentina, and I plan the events. I won't be able to make it this year, but yeah, I heard really good things, and that's a really good advice. Basically, take advantage of the AI nowadays, and also what you said about the community. We were talking about this. In my experience, I don't know if you know, but I'm kind of new to this industry. I worked all my life in tech. I've been around now for over a year in accounting, and everyone is great. Everyone is willing to share. There's this really nice community with all firm owners and humans in accounting. So that's definitely a really good advice that I think.
Even the vendor community. I mean, meeting other vendors, they're so great. It really is. It is pretty phenomenal right now that not only are the firm owners, and there's a lot of coaches, that are, the CPA Academy and the CFO project. There's some great communities. Also, Jason Stats has Realize community. There's a lot of communities that are around that you can join also, but but even the vendor groups that you meet, when you talk to the vendors that are actually servicing the accounting channels, those people are so fun and so helpful. And, that's super inspiring. It's inspiring to me as a tech vendor to the industry, because, I love the industry so much, and I really love and admire the firm owners. So, that's how I approach meeting firm owners. Like, I want them to love Levvy and to, hear how they're going to use it and hear their ideas about how we can improve it all the time. But I think all the vendors in the industry actually feel the same way. It's really cool.
I
Yeah.
agree, and I have this question that I haven't, or I'm not able to answer yet. Like, why? Why is this? Is this something that it's only happening in accounting? If we are moved to retail, are all the retail vendors and owners getting together and creating this community? Maybe it's something that it's going on in all industries, and I'm not familiar with all. In my experience, I agree 120% with everything you've said, and I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm working now in this industry.
Yeah, me too. I
So
don't
this
know if
is
it's happening anywhere else. I'm pretty all in this industry in terms of community, growing my own community and meeting other entrepreneurs. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a great time to be in accounting. That's all I can say.
I agree. I agree. Jane, well, it was really really nice having you. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you.
joining this episode, and I'm happy that we'll be seeing each other soon. Actually, next week. All right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for
Thank
inviting
you
me on
so
the show.
thank you so
Take care.
much. Have a good day. Bye bye.